Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we are going to take a look back at Hampton's past when the streetcar was our mode of transportation, getting us to work, getting us to the beach, and getting us home. My guest is Greg Siegel, who's a history author and a volunteer with the History Museum. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me again.
It's wonderful to think about this period in time, and I know it touches on your particular interest, which you wrote the book about with, and
Correct.
how that section of the city was developed. The streetcar was vital to that, right?
Correct. What the streetcar did for our area, and that includes Newport News as much as Hampton, is brought people together. It also took the city centers of downtown and able to expand them out. The heyday of streetcar ridership was in the 2030s and the early 40s. And that's when the expansion happened. The shipyard was expanding like crazy. Langley was expanding like crazy. NASA was expanding like crazy. And we had all this influx of folks moving into the area because of all the expansion we're having. And they had to go somewhere.
Right, they needed places to live, and they needed to get to work.
Exactly, and also services. And so what the streetcar line did was actually open up suburbs. For the Hampton area, it opened up the Wythe area.
Which is directly between the two
which is
downtowns
directly
at that time.
Exactly.
Right, Elizabeth City County was then.
And then it also opened up the Hilton Village area. When the shipyard opened up to Hilton Village, they paid for a spur to go from downtown Hampton out to Hilton Village, so all those folks could be able to hop on the car and head to work or head downtown and enjoy those services as well. The streetcar line also traveled out to Buckrow, also off to Old Point. So you can think of when all the boats come in, the ferries came in to Old Point. They hopped on the streetcar. It's hard to imagine, looking back in the 20s and the 30s and think of what we have today. We have cars everywhere.
Right.
And during that period, cars were hard to get. They were expensive. And during the war years, they weren't producing any cars. So
because they were too busy focused on planes and planes and tanks and boat ships.
Right, and the rubber wasn't available, the steel wasn't available, so nobody had new cars, so they all had junkers. So the best mode of transportation was the streetcar. And all told, we had about 42 miles of track laid between the two cities. And you think about, our two cities are on the small side, but you think of 42 miles, that's a lot of track.
Well, yeah, because so much of it wasn't built out then, too. You're not talking about like all the way to Fort Eustis. You're really talking about downtown Newport News, a little maybe past Hilton, and Hampton, mostly this side of Mercury, and then up to the base. It wasn't, all those neighborhoods that have been built since the 40s weren't here during the streetcar.
Exactly. So it's really neat to go back in history. And that's what we're doing with the Streetcar Project. The project is called the 390 Project, and the reason why it's called that is our car number, that is the last known car available, is car number 390.
Okay, so let me just back up a second. There is one streetcar that we know of from these days, and we are raising the money to bring it here, restore it, and teach people.
That's correct. The car presently is in Baltimore, Maryland, at the Baltimore Streetcar Museum. It was a great story of how they got it, and I don't know how much time we have, and I know, as you know, I like to talk.
Just tell us a little bit, that'd be great.
So the streetcar was purchased in 1917 by the Hampton Old Point Railroad, and we received the car in 1918, and it ran through Hampton Newport News from 1918 through 1945. 1945, buses became more. Basically, the war is over. There's more steel. There's more rubber. And with streetcars, it only can go where rails were. Buses can go everywhere. And so the buses were able to go into those neighborhoods and stop. In Old Wythe, where I live, there was bus stops all down Kenmore Avenue.
Oh, okay.
So buses were able to go right down the middle of neighborhoods where the streetcar stayed on the outside.
And you would have to walk to it.
You would have to, right, which was at that time getting to be inconvenient and stuff. So buses came on, streetcars went away in 1945 in our area. In 1946, the Andersons, which was a couple that owned 14 acres in York County, bought the streetcar from a guy that owned a lot that had many streetcars because he bought them from the streetcar company and he was reselling them, trying to make some money off of them. So he was selling streetcars for $100 each.
Oh my gosh.
And the Andersons bought a streetcar and had it trucked up to York County. And everybody will know where it sat. Some people remember sitting there, but it was right next to the True Value Hardware store, right off 17. And I met a lot of people that recall the car there, but they never knew anything about the car. They have memories of the car being there in that area. So in 1977, so basically from 46 to 77, the car was used by the Andersons. They lived in the car. It was their home.
Did they really?
Yes.
What a cool story.
It was broken up into 3 parts. They had a kitchen with a potbelly stove that heated the car. The middle section was their living room area. The other end of the car was their bedroom. And they had an outhouse. And they would farm the land and live off the land and so forth and so on. In 1977, my understanding, in January of that year, it was a very bad storm, very cold winter, a lot of snow. And the Andersons, Miss Anderson's cousins and nieces and nephews went up to the car and said, "You got to get out," because the potbelly stove just wasn't heating up the car. She was getting up in her years. Mm-hmm. She was 80-something at the time. So they convinced her to leave the car, and that was the last time she lived the car, is in January of 77. Flash forward to summer of 77, some members of the Baltimore Streetcar Museum was vacationing in Virginia Beach, and they decided to drive back through on 17 to go back to Baltimore, and they happened to pass the hardware store on 17 and saw the streetcar, because these are streetcar geeks. Mm-hmm. So they could spot a streetcar miles away. They would sniff it out. So the 2 gentlemen stopped and inquired about the streetcar and got information from the store manager at the time, found out the property owner who owned the car, et cetera, and took pictures, looked around the car, took pictures of the serial number, any kind of identification markings, and got back up to Baltimore. That week they had a board meeting. Say, "Look what we found." Now, the reason Baltimore Streetcar Museum was interested in our car is that because I call it our car.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Our car and the Baltimore Street line use the same identical car. The reason for that is that the general manager of our line and the Baltimore general manager were friends. And because we were such a small line, we did not have an engineering department. We didn't have a lot of departments like a larger street line would have. And so every time that the Hampton line needed new cars, he would get with the Baltimore general manager and put an order in for us. And so we
would work together.
They worked together.
Department
exactly.
Repaired. Okay.
So we would have the same car that Baltimore. Baltimore did not have our style car in their fleet at the time. So they were excited about getting our style of car to Baltimore. So flash forward, so now we're in summer of 77. Now November of 77, they made the agreement to receive the car for free from the owners of the property, and the only caveat was they had to come get it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Thanksgiving weekend, 14 members came down from Baltimore, and they worked to, get the car ready for transport. Unfortunately, in November of 77, there was another big storm brewing, and it rained for 4 days. So they were hoping to come down on that Thursday, get the car ready to go, leave on Saturday back to Baltimore, so a 4-day weekend. Well, because of the rain, the mud that happened and whatever, they weren't able to move the car until that Tuesday, because they spent 2 days in the hotel doing nothing because of how much the weather was. But they finally got it up to Baltimore. So from 1977 through 2013, when they contacted the city, it's been sitting in a corner in their streetcar barn. And during that time, the Baltimore Streetcar Museum Board of Directors had every intention of doing a restoration and putting it on the rails and using it as part of their fleet with their collection. But one thing led to another, and this never got done. The car was stopped and started many times in its lifetime, but it just kind of sat there. And by 2013, the board of directors up in Baltimore decided they were not going to take over the project because they have a lot of other projects they wanted to get done. And they reached out to the city of Hampton because through their investigation work and looking up serial numbers, and so they knew it belonged to Hampton. And they decided that if Hampton wanted it, they would give it to Hampton first.
That's so wonderful.
So that's the
But it
story
comes with
there.
a price tag, which gets us to where we are now.
It does come with a price tag, and that's always the hard part of it. But we're looking at a budget around $750,000 to $800,000. And the reason why it's that high is that we have to build a building for it, for display. One of the caveats working with Baltimore Streetcar Museum is that we would have to use the car for educational purpose to teach the citizens and visitors to Hampton about streetcarring, what it meant to the community, how did it work. And because you have to remember back then, you had a lump of coal going to the power station. They turned that coal into electricity. That electricity went on a very thin line going down to the engine, the motor of the streetcar, and it ran. Mm-hmm. We think of now you plug your phone in, you've got a charger, and things like that.
But it's interesting because we're sort of going back to that with the whole idea of we can't build enough roads to hold the people who live in Hampton roads and need to move around. And so the efforts toward light rail or rapid transit or something that is a fixed pathway is coming back because we're maxed out.
It's amazing how
in the same way they were maxed out in 1915.
You never know. Maybe we'll be wearing leisure suits next week, back in the 70s. But it's amazing. I do a lot of reading about streetcars in the United States and in Europe. And there are major cities now and throughout the United States is bringing back the streetcar.
Right.
Cincinnati just came online, for an example. There's a couple out west in California that are coming back online. And it's amazing. And, people ask, what is a streetcar? What's the terminology? Well, a streetcar, you have to have it on tracks, and you have to have a wire by electricity connected to it. There's a lot of rapid transit programs out there, but they're not officially streetcars.
No, streetcar or trolley cars, right? Kind of the same,
right. That's a slang name, is trolley car. But you have many rapid transits that just run, through the tracks and power that way, like a third rail and stuff. That's not considered a streetcar. A streetcar is considered when you have a pole, you have a live wire going down into the car to make that car run, and so forth. So the tide down in Norfolk, that's a streetcar basically.
Okay, see, I didn't know if that counted or not.
Because that's running on wire, through it. You see all the wires stretched.
So we're looking at our history and our future a little bit at the same time here.
Right, exactly.
So we are trying to raise the money to bring the streetcar back, do some restoration, build a building to put it in, and have some educational exhibits. And as you said, the History Museum already has some amazing photos. They
do. They have a lot of the photos is up in storage that I was able to get through and look. And we have a lot of photos. We don't have a lot of artifacts yet. We're searching out for artifacts to be able to tell the story better. But we have time to go. The restoration process probably could take up to 2-3 years. For that, building the building, and so we're looking, down the line. This won't be an overnight type project. It's something that is going to be continuing and so forth and so on. One of the things before we talk about the fundraiser coming up is in the Hampton History lobby, I just set up 4 storyboards. So anybody interested in the project can go down to the lobby. There's 4 storyboards talking about the timeline of the car. There's a map from 1914 that shows the streetcar lines and what road it went on. There's a storyboard about the goal and the vision that we have as a committee. And of course, there's information there about if you want to get involved in it. We have information there also. So that's going to be down in the lobby for a while. And hopefully, if you're down there visiting with Alan and his exhibits or going through the museum or down there for one of their events, you can take some time and to take a look at what we're doing and stuff.
Okay.
So we're talking about the event, our
Right,
first public event.
You guys have been working on this,
We've been
mostly you,
No, I have
but
a
some
committee.
museum staff
Yeah,
and your
we
committee
have-
for a
we-
little while, and now you're going
Right.
public.
Well, first we have a board of directors. We have 5 board of directors that set the goals, that set the tone and stuff. I'm the chair of the group. I also have a committee, an event committee that's made up of 8 other citizens, and we're all volunteer. We all have full-time jobs and so forth. So we're all doing this because we want to bring back history. We want to preserve history, and this is a good thing to do and do that. So coming up on November 12th. The committee is putting on an event called Red Wine and Blues, and we chose that because we always have to have a brand, you know, and stuff. So we like that. It runs really good. So the event is going to be starts at 6 o'clock. It is located. It'll be located this year at St. John's Parish Hall, and we're going to turn the hall into like a little blues pub.
Which, gets you back to the 20s and 30s there, doesn't it?
Yes,
During
it
the
does.
heyday of
During the heyday.
Streetcar.
And I've known Jackie Scott for a few years today, and Jackie Scott, as most people of Hampton know, she's a beautiful, great blues singer. She sings the Chicago-type blues,
Right.
which is really a gritty, really tells a good story type blues. And she'd offers her services to us last year to help us raise funds. And, we worked out a date with Jackie, and Jackie and the House Wreckers are going to be coming and playing along.
Wonderful band.
A wonderful band. And she has invited, and one of her bands, another band that she has sung with out in Illinois and Missouri called the Kilbourne Alley Band. And these are 4 guys, and they play a mean blues. And we'll have some videos up on our Facebook page, probably in a week or so, to get people energized and excited about hearing some new music and stuff. And so that's our blues part. The wines part of it is we're going to have available for sale, of course, wine and beer. And then everybody that we sell a ticket to, which is $35 a ticket, will get a free glass of wine. If they don't like the wine, they can get a free glass of beer. So, we know there's both sides of the table.
Right.
And then the red part of it is that we want everybody to wear their favorite red color. A jacket, a scarf, a bow. They could wear socks, just to have some fun.
Just some fun.
Just some fun. And we're going to dress up the parish hall with red tablecloths and things like that during the event to try and just kind of make it more fun and stuff. We will have some delicious appetizers available to us, more along the theme of being in a pub type food. So we're doing some sliders, and we're going to have a French fry station where you can have different dipping sauces, and French fries are going to be made while you're waiting, so there'll be fresh French fries. And that kind of food available. And, for raising money, and that's why we're doing this, is we're going to do a silent auction, and we're going to do some raffles and so forth and so on to make the night fun.
That sounds great. Yes. Okay, so people should plan in advance and get their tickets.
Yes.
So you guys can count on how many people you're going to have.
We have tickets available at the museum gift shop, and they're online at eventbrite.com, and you just type in red, wine, and blue. You can order online, or you can call me.
Sure. And we'll put that on the History Museum's page, too, hampton.gov/history.
Yes. So we're getting the word out. We're early yet, but we're trying to have some fun.
Good.
While we raise money.
That sounds great. Well, thank you, Greg, and good luck.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and hopefully we can do it again.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. I hope you have learned a little bit about the era of the streetcar in Hampton and how vital that was to our growth and development, and how important it is to bring that back and remember and recognize that era. Thank you so much for watching.